Thank you so much. Once again, welcome everyone. Good evening, and we are going to jump right into it. Pastor Mandla, thank you, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Connie. Thank you, Kaylee, for the opening prayer. And I'd like to thank Craig and Adria for the welcome. They welcomed me when they joined in this evening. The other brown couple there, friends from many years ago, from before COVID. So today we're going to talk about money in your marriage, essentially. Yes. That's the part we're dealing with, and here I'm hoping that we're gonna deal with some of the things we usually discover inside about money, and of course by the time we get to that point, I would have shared a lot of information so that you can understand the significance of what I'm going to say at the end. So please bear with me as we rush through a lot of the information. In James chapter 1, verse 17, James says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. The phrase shadow, there is no shadow of turning. We know that phrase from the book, from the song, Great is Thy Faithfulness. There is no shadow of turning in thee. It comes from this text. In chapter 1, James starts by saying, be happy that you're going through trials, because trials produce patience and so on. It's talking about the beauty of the upside of the difficulties that people are going through. And then he talks about something we're going to talk about later on. He says, look, if you lack wisdom, ask for the Lord, he will give it liberally. And then he gets later on and he says, but remember, people, when they are tempted, they should not blame the Lord, because evil things don't come from the Lord. They come from your own desires, and that's where your temptations come. And later on, as he is in the same train of thought, he then comes and says, but remember that every good gift, every good and perfect gift comes from above, from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation and shadow of turning. So when James writes this, and he's a very practical person, as you read the book, you get to realize that when we talk about good gifts, the good gifts cannot possibly mess you up unless you don't have the wisdom to manage it, which is with the test we're going to be dealing with later on. But when we think of these good gifts that come from the Lord, now he's already indicated that temptations don't come from the Lord. So whatever you're going to get through evil means, that's not coming from the Lord. That's just you're getting it from someplace else. But good gifts, good and perfect gifts, they come from the Lord. And so this is what I want to emphasize today: the concept, the idea that good gifts come from God. Good and perfect gifts come from above. They come from the Father. But one of the things we need to have is the wisdom to manage the gifts we get from the Father. And that can sometimes be a tricky thing. And today I want to talk about role of money in your marriage. Now, when I talk about money, there's old money and new money. You've probably heard the phrase before. For those who haven't, let me just give them a brief rundown, of what old money and new money is. Old money is when you've had money in the family for a while, money from and at this point, it's more likely wealth and not riches, wealth. And generally, it's sometimes the distinction is said to be academic. It's not real. It's not a real distinction. But let me explain the difference when I use the phrase wealth and riches. Wealth is usually that point where the money you have and the assets you have, they are generating money. In other words, if it's old money, usually at that point, there are shares in company, there's property, there's other resources, whether it's gold somewhere or diamond or whatever the case may be, platinum resource usually be your gold and your platinum and so on, oil. There are investments that make money. In other words, the people who have old money don't have to wake up in the morning to go and make money. Money is there. It has bought assets. It has already bought the means for the money to be made. And so when there's old money, people are usually hired to run whatever it is that old money is invested in, so that the money is generated. So at that point, it's wealth. And if you come from old money, your involvement in the investments or the businesses of the family is not necessary for the money to be generated. It's so that you can have something to be involved in. At that point, you have certain ambitions that you want to do. That's old money. Money's been there. You were born in it. You grow up in it. And your activities are not required for the money to keep on generating more money. That's old money. Now, that everybody's into old money. Some people are not into old money. Some people they could be into old riches. By that, I mean, usually when we talk about riches, we're talking about the money that you generate, that you have to be involved in it. In other words, you have to do something. If you're not involved in it, then you're going to lose it. So even if you earn a lot of money, you could be rich in the sense that you are earning a lot of money, but you need to go to work. You need to go to work to make that money. So that's it. You may be even accumulating wealth, but you are in the process of accumulating wealth. So old money, it's there already. It's there. Now, new money is the money you're making now. It's the money that's been made now, or it's been made by your parents while you were growing up. In other words, you were not born in money. You didn't really grow up in it. Now, probably as an adult, you've had springboards. Your parents probably gave you springboards. And at this point, life can be softer, life can be easier, but the money is new. And usually new money is very flashy. New money will have flashy cars, flashy, is into brand names. New money there's something about new money that says, see me, I have it. Do you see that I have it? Yes, old money's been there for a while. It's no longer a big deal. And you find that old money wears less brand names than new money. Old money they're not too keen on flashing it around because it's been around. It's no longer a big deal. Old money talks about, well, you don't shove your money in people's face. But new money wants to be seen. New money is about flaunting it because you have it and God has blessed you. Why not flaunt it? There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a characteristic of new money. And so when the process, usually old money has its own challenges, which I'm not going to deal with today. I'm going to talk today about the process of making new money, because that's when money becomes a problem. Old money has different types of problems coming in. But when you talk about new money, people want to make their own money. They've been to school, they have good jobs, or they're starting businesses, and they're making their money. They're making their new money. They're getting into the suburbs they always dreamt of getting into. They want the plans of getting into particular cars and having a particular lifestyle. That's new money. You're making it, or you plan to make it. You are in the process. You're building your business. You have dreams for it. But it's you have to work to make it. For the money to be there, you have to be involved. Now, whether your new money is because your job is going to make you a lot of money, or you're building a business that eventually will generate its own money, it's new money if you're working on it now. If you can't sleep the whole month and still have all of your expenses covered, it's new money. If you need to be involved in it. Now, the outsider's view of the role of money, they usually look at money and think that money, and rightfully so, money is there to pay bills. Money will pay bills. That's all of your expenses. But by bill, I mean there's something that you got a service before you could pay for it. It's usually your electricity. That's if you're not off the grid, your electricity, your rates, your municipal rates, your water, your bond. If you're still paying for a bond, okay, old money is not paying for bonds. You're paying for your bond, you're paying for your car, you're paying for school fees and sort of all of these bills that have to be paid at the end of the month or whenever you get paid. The view of money is that the outsider's view of money. By outside, I mean someone who is not into the relationship, is not in the marriage, will think and say, well, obviously, money pays bills, which is true. Money does pay bills. Secondly, that money finances your lifestyle. Of course, money finances your lifestyle. Money finances the way you live, where you eat, where you drink, the kind of clothes you wear, the kind of car you drive, where you live, where your kids go to school. It's a lifestyle that you have. How you do the things you do, the way you roll, that's what money does. And usually what we see on television with celebrities, we see a lifestyle that has been acquired because of money. They live a certain type of lifestyle because their money allows them to do so. So when we think of money, we think of bills, we think of a lifestyle. And lastly, we think of it as a status symbol. When people know that you've got money, they treat you in a particular way. When people know that you've got money, they defer to you in a lot of things. And we've had instances where people can have the worst type of lifestyles. They could have the most immoral immoral lifestyles, but still have a lot of clout within the church. Why? Because they've got money. We've had people who can be very exploitative, very irresponsible, very reckless. Sometimes, and this is the unfortunate part of the time we live in now, is that we may even know that you got your money very dodgy or criminal ways, but now that you have it, now that you've managed to steal it from the poor or from the government or wherever, we're still going to hold you in high regard because you have it, because having money generally gives people, having money is a status symbol. So when people think of money, generally they will think, okay, fine, it pays bills, it finances lifestyle, and it's a status symbol. Now, in the context of marriage, when you think of money, you're outside of marriage, that's what you want. You're thinking of, okay, fine, this is what money is going to do. And depending on how much money you have, you may only be thinking that money is supposed to pay bills. You may not even be thinking about the other things because you're struggling to just pay the bills. So that's the outsider's view of money. I say outsiders because this is the person who's outside of the money and outside of the marriage. And so they think about it, but primarily outside of the money. People who are insiders in the money, they see it differently, they experience it differently. So outsiders see that. And when we think of money in our marriage, that's what we would like money to do. We would like money to do these things. Other people will come up with some funny story that I don't want to be rich, I just want to be comfortable. Comfortable is another word for rich, because when people have to define comfortable, they generally will give you a story that I want to be able to have money to pay for just the things that I want. Just to be that's rich. That's rich. When you have money when you have money to pay for everything that you want, you're rich. Because if you need to sit down and plan and budget for it for the long term to get it, then of course, you're not there yet. So it's not a question of comfort. It's just that we may not always want to use the phrase rich, and people don't want to say that they're rich. So this is the outsider's view of money. Now, in the context of marriage, we have intimacy, and intimacy is different people have defined it differently, and over time I've distilled it to what I'm going to share with you now. From the different things of people, how differently people have defined it, and secondly, how I've come to experience it, not only in my own life, but the different couples that I've worked with. That intimacy is feeling understood, appreciated, and cared for by someone. Now, once you feel understood, and you feel appreciated, and feel cared for by someone, you get there and you stay there in that feeling because you are able to share personal and private thoughts, personal and private ideas, dreams, and feelings. You can do this through words or actions, and that's intimacy. Now, some people can be intimate without ever being sexual. It's just that they know that this person understands me and appreciates me and cares for me. And I'm able to share my personal and private thoughts, ideas, dreams, and feelings with them through words. Sometimes they could be you could be in the same room, look at each other from across the room, not say a word, but the look communicates how you feel because the person knows and understands you. That's intimacy. Now, intimacy does not require that you agree with the other person, but it simply means that there is no fear of rejection. There is no fear that when you share yourself with this person, when you share this private and personal thought or idea or dream or feeling, that the person is going to reject you, that the person's reaction is going to make you feel you wish you hadn't shared it. So you have that feeling that you can do it. Now, it is the safety of this relationship that allows you to share more of yourself. Do you see the progression? Once you share something of yourself, you share your personal and private thoughts, ideas, dreams, and feelings, you share them with this person, and the reaction is to mock you, laugh at you, to attack you, or at some point it's used against you. You no longer feel safe to share more about yourself with this person. You don't. Now, you'll find people will complain that my wife doesn't talk to me. Usually the complaint is my husband doesn't talk to me. He doesn't share his thoughts and feelings with me. He doesn't open up with me, or she doesn't open up with me. And then we talk to the couple, you discover that at some point, this person shared something with you, and in a fight, you use it against them. And when they attacked you with something else, you use this to attack them. And they realize, if you could use this against me, I'm not telling you anything else. Or they shared something with you, you mocked them, you made them feel stupid or like an idiot, or you made them, you just You make them feel like they regret telling you this thing, and the safety of opening up to you is gone. And later on, you're complaining that the person doesn't open up with you simply because you close that door of intimacy. And it takes a while for the person who gave you the benefit of the doubt and opened up with you and became intimate with you and after you've attacked them and they felt rejected or attacked when they opened up to you and they closed the door, it takes a while for them to open the door again for you. So intimacy is that. And from this intimacy flows a lot of things. So when there are different types of intimacy, but when we think about intimacy, I don't want us to just think about sex. Usually when people think about intimacy, they think about sex, and even sex, sometimes people reduce it to sexual intercourse. That comes late. It's a form, it's even part of physical intimacy. So intimacy is very important in a relationship. There are people who are colleagues who are very intimate. And many times when people have their first affairs, after they get married, it's because of a colleague, a friend, someone they go to church with, someone they sing in a group with, and they just became intimate. There was no intention to be sexual. They just became intimate. And it's very easy for this kind of intimacy to slip over into something sexual. Now, I just wanted us to understand what we mean when we talk about intimacy. Now, there are different types of intimacy, as you can see there. And all these different types of intimacy, ranging from emotional intimacy, intellectual intimacy, physical intimacy, experiential intimacy, spiritual intimacy, financial intimacy. I'm going to touch on them briefly. I won't go into depth on them because that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about money. But when you're married, you're going to need this. And I just want us to be able to connect this with the money. Now, just for those people who thought that intimacy, is mainly sex, I want to say this, and it will, even for those who are on refresher courses, on the refresher course, remember this: the emotional, intellectual, physical, and spiritual and financial intimacy, it usually assists with the sexual intimacy. In other words, it's easy for, when you have this, it's easy for it to become sexual. And the sexual intimacy usually reinforces, because you'll find that for those who are doing refreshers, after people have been sexually intimate, they tend to share more of themselves. And that, of course, facilitates the next. So it becomes a cycle that moves up and down, up and down. But if you don't have the emotional, intellectual, physical, experiential, spiritual, and financial intimacy, it's very, very difficult to have the sexual intimacy. Then people fight over sex and not moods and all of those things. And there are a lot of things. And usually when people come and say, we're not having sex in the marriage, they think the problem is physical. It's not. It's usually other things. There are other forms of intimacies that are not there. And the more you talk, you discover the sex didn't just die on its own, unless, of course, there are plumbing problems and logistical problems. But usually it just didn't die on its own. Other things have gone wrong in other areas of your intimacy. Now, emotional intimacy, I'll be brief here. It's the ability to be able to talk to someone, to debrief, to share your day. Come back from work, have someone tell you how their day worked, what happened and what did not happen. It's the ability to gossip with your spouse. Of course, as married people, we don't really gossip, we share information. And that's it. The more you talk, the more you share, you realize that you've got stories that are your own. You're able to reminisce about things that have happened in the past. You talk, you have pillow talk, things you'll not share to anybody else. You compliment one another, you receive compliments. Because of the things you talk about together, you end up having your own humor. And the emotional intimacy is also fed by ongoing expressions of gratitude. Thank you when the person brings you food or brings you water or takes your car to the car wash. The small things that you do, people, they feed to the emotional intimacy. In the course of the day, you get a call, you get a WhatsApp, someone's just touching base. They're not reminding you about the water or the bread or the milk or the kids, as much as those things are important. But sometimes the person just said, I was just checking. You okay? Yeah, fine. It's a 15-second call, sometimes 30 seconds or 45. Nothing major, just touching base, and the person may just give you, I was stuck in traffic and this and that. No, I'm not doing anything. Nothing major. That develops the emotional intimacy, and you're able to talk. You're able to be with each other. You're able to have comfortable conversation, and even the silence can be comfortable. Why? Because you have the emotional intimacy. The silence is not awkward. You can be silent for a long time and just look at each other and feel, because you're not fighting, the intimacy is there, and it's emotional intimacy. Now, intellectual intimacy is the ability to share thoughts and opinions with somebody else, to be able to share these thoughts, share these ideas, bounce ideas off one another, to share your dreams. This is what I'd like. And sometimes these dreams are foolish. Sometimes they're far-fetched. But you have the safety to share them with the person. You're able to share your fears. with this other person. That's intellectual intimacy. You have an intellectual sparring partner. You can open up to this person. Usually men can be intellectually intimate with other men. It's very easy to share thoughts, ideas, usually a friend, and you bounce it off. Sometimes they share it with other women who are friends. This is the interesting thing. Men can have very close, dangerous though it may be, can have close female friends, and they can be intellectually intimate with. And sometimes they're very fortunate. God blesses them with a spouse that can be intellectually intimate with. Women can sometimes be very intellectually intimate with a friend, a very, very close friend. They bounce off the ideas, they share thoughts, opinions, dreams, fears. And usually when they talk about best friend, they talk about somebody they're not just emotionally intimate with, but someone that they're intellectually intimate. And that's what they're talking about, a best friend. So that's intellectual intimacy. You can have it in your marriage. Physical intimacy ranges from cuddling. You know, when someone is standing and you cuddle them from behind or from the front as you stand in line or whatever the case may be, playing with the person's hair, helping them get dressed, and holding hands when you're driving or watching. I was seeing some photograph of someone, they were holding hands driving in a car, and someone made a very interesting comment. You can never experience this if your man drives a manual. But that's not the point. The point is holding hands, walking, sitting, talking, watching TV, things that you say to pick the other person up, put them in a good mood. Sometimes you get kisses on the cheek or the neck or the back, or, back of the neck, being kissed on the shoulder. Spooning is very helpful. People, not helpful, but it's fun. You sit there, you get foot rubs, someone sits on your lap, they play with your ears, they massage you. And it's interesting, those people who've ever had the experience of when you're driving and someone just comes and brushes the back of your, it feels so nice. Those long kisses that don't lead to sex, that's part of physical intimacy. Yes, sexual intimacy is part of physical intimacy as well. So this is what we mean by physical intimacy. So whenever we talk about physical intimacy, don't just think we're talking about jumping into bed. There's all these other things. And funny enough, you'll find that all these other things have not been done and someone must rush to bed. But that's a story for another day. Then there's experiential intimacy. These are the things that are dull and mundane, the everyday stuff. When you go to the shop together, you buy bread together, you go to the car wash together, you attend weddings together. Now, why? You're just experiencing life together. As you experience life together, as you take trips together, go to church together, you have so many experiences together that when you talk about something, you are easily able to reference something together and you know it. You're able to finish each other's sentences and phrases because you've been there. Someone can say a particular phrase and it immediately takes you to a particular event or particular movie. It can take you to a particular song, can take you to a particular joke, it takes you to a particular funeral, whatever it is, but you were there. And because of this, you are able to have so much that you've shared together. You may have passions and hobbies that you do something. And we usually encourage married couples to find something that they do together. Find something to do together. Just have these experiences together because they add to the intimacy. I mean, we've been blessed. We've had the capacity of doing so much with my wife over the years, such that there are so many things when we talk about, we can easily together reference at the same movie or the same song or the same place or the same person or the same event or same situation. That's experiential intimacy. It allows you to take the regular mundane things of life, even the great things of taking a trip abroad or something like that, puts them together, and you've got so many experiences together that the conversation is very easy. It flows, and you have things that just the two of you. You can tell a story from different perspectives. You can laugh together, and the moment you talk about something that is beautiful that has happened before, you are able to be transported back to that moment and have the same experiences. So that's experiential intimacy. You can experience the same joy. You must try this out. Whenever you tell the story of how you met, it's amazing how the excitement and the joy and the great feelings you have with just thinking about the story. When you talk about it, it brings back the same feelings. So that's what experiential intimacy does. And then spiritual intimacy. Okay, there's a difference between spirituality and religion. Spirituality is we are all born with the capacity to connect with God. Everybody is born has an inbuilt capacity to connect with God, the Creator. That's spirituality. The different things we do to connect with God. Now, God has revealed Himself. Heavens declare the glory of the Lord. The Bible says. The firmament declares it. In Romans chapter 1, Paul talks about how God has revealed Himself, not just his objection to ungodliness. He has also revealed his invisible attributes, even his Godhead, through what he has created. So human beings desire and capacity to connect with God. That's spirituality. This thing that makes us want to worship someone or something and go to great lengths to devote ourselves to something that's big, that's going to outlive us, something that's going to live so long that we will have contributed to this. That's spirituality. Now, the content of spirituality is religion. In other words, the content that says the creator of the heavens and earth is Jehovah. Now, that is religion. It gives you the name of the creator. This is what God has done. He created in 7 days. The 7-day story, that's religion. It's giving you information about this desire and capacity to connect with God. The whole details of he created, there was Adam and Eve, that's religious information because it's giving you content to your spirituality. The whole story, the gospel, that's religion. It's giving you content for your spirituality. Now, spiritual intimacy allows you to have spiritual disciplines with this person. By that, we mean prayer. You are able to pray together. You are able to read scripture, share scripture together. Now, this happens across religions. Muslims can have spiritual intimacy. Buddhists can have spiritual intimacy. Christians have spiritual intimacy. You are able to worship together. You're able to share music together, appreciate different aspects of things that connect you to the divine. For example, people are able to sit and watch a sunset together and be like, wow, this is so beautiful. And of course, you need money to do that, to appreciate the beauty of life. Otherwise, you're preoccupied with other things. But you're sitting there and you're watching a beautiful sunset. You're watching waves crash against the rocks. And you're amazed at how beautifully God has created the universe. Now, that is part of your spiritual intimacy. And within the spiritual intimacy, you have the freedom to have religious discussions and have different views or different things in the spiritual intimacy. But you feel safe enough to share your different views, safe enough to say, I think like this, I have this small little heresy, what do you think about this? And if disagreements, share, and you grow in the process, the spiritual intimacy. Now, financial intimacy is being able to set your financial goals together and say, this is what we want to do. You pursue them. You're very open about your income streams, how you spend your money. You try to achieve your goals together, and you allow each other space for discretionary spending. This is it, financial intimacy, such that when you have money, I have money. You know, when this is what we're doing with our money in this measure. Of course, each one will have that discretion to spend some money in whatever way they want without necessarily accounting for it. But it allows you to feel that it's not just my money and your money, it's our money, and it's handled that way. And now, what does that have to do, money and intimacy? If you've ever been experienced to this hierarchy of needs, Maslow has one. Of course, there are many people who've had criticism of it and variations of it, but I'll run with that concept basically. At the bottom, I've basically categorized these marriages into 3. Many people have done it in different ways, and I appreciate it, giving it different labels, but this one works for me. At the bottom of it, you have aspirant marriages, adequate marriages, and very few. Right at the top, you've got affluent marriages. I'm going to explain that just right now. With aspirant marriages right at the bottom, this is when the couple's attention. Now, when I talk about attention, I'm talking about your energy and your time. The couple's attention is on survival. Now, usually money here is low. Money is low. And because the money is low, the focus is on survival, putting food on the table, putting clothes on the bodies, having shelter, roof over our heads, having access to education for their children, and access to healthcare. Now, the healthcare could even be the local clinic that's around you, but that's it. The focus there is this. And because of that, when those needs are met, there's cause for celebration. It's a big deal with thank the Lord. They'll have the most wonderful sex they can possibly think of. Why? Because these things have been met. And they can be very intimate with one another, and because they feel that God is good, and they're able to have a great quality of life because their day-to-day concern is to make sure these things are done. Aspirant marriages, and so they aspire to make sure that there's food on the table, there's clothes on their back, there's shelter, there's access to education, access for children, and access to healthcare. And once they've achieved these things, they're able to look back at their lives and feel our life has been successful. Our life has been successful. We put our kids through school. We had a nice, comfortable home. It was warm. We had good food. We enjoyed ourselves. We thank the Lord for that. That is it. That's the main struggle, survival. Then you've got adequate marriages. Adequate marriages is when the couple's basic needs are being adequately met. So they're no longer worried about where the next meal is going to come from. They're no longer worried about food and clothes and all of those things. They're now concerned about the kind of food they get to eat, the kind of clothes they get to wear, the kind of neighborhood they live in, the kind of schools their children will go to, the kind of medical healthcare that they get. At this point, the bulk of people in the middle class fall here in this category, because this is when we are more concerned about, I want to eat some kind of this kind of food. You're more concerned about the freshness of the food. This is when you start looking at expiry dates of food, certain kinds of food. I don't like this kind of bread. I don't like that rice. I like this rice. I don't like this brand. I like that brand. When it comes to clothes, you have preferred brands. Of course, there's a huge market for people who are poor, who like brands because they meet another need. We'll talk about that some other time. But they have specific types of clothes they want. They have styles. They have fashion tastes. They've got particular colors that they like, and they buy accordingly. When it comes to neighborhoods, they're now thinking about issues like safety, property value, and the aesthetics. They want it to look nice. Schools, they now talk about from education, which was for aspirant marriages. Now they're talking about good schools. They're willing to spend more money and transport their kids to better schools because they want their kids to have a good education. And now they start talking about having some form of medical aid because they're now concerned about queuing at the government clinic or government hospital. They're not too very happy about this and that. So at this point, it's about preferred way of meeting the needs, but there's no fear that the needs might not be met. These are your aspirant marriages. And so that's it. So the money that you have is here informing what the needs that you have. Those people who have very little money, hand to mouth, aspirant marriages, their concern is making sure we survive. But here, money is somewhat there. This money that is somewhat there could be in the form of credit cards that you pay, and then you still use credit to live for the following month. It could be credit. It could be installments, which is still credit. It could be a little bit. It could be a combination of that and cash. It could be salary, but plus a side hustle there. But there's money, and the money is kind of meeting those needs. Then you've got affluent marriages. Here we're not even dealing with needs now. Here the couple's wants are being met adequately. They've gone beyond needs. These people are not. It doesn't even cross their mind that they might not have electricity. It's not even a fear. Now at this point, they've gone beyond needs. They're dealing with wants. Things that they want are being adequately met. They have the finances to buy the car they want, to buy the house they want, to go wherever they want. And at this point, their main concern, their attention is on nice to haves. At this point, it's about a particular brand of amongst high-end vehicles. It's about a particular suburb and a house with so many bathrooms and all of that, a particular view, a shade, a particular theme, and here they're into experiences. They have places that they like to go to. Even if it's within the country, they've got certain experiences that they enjoy. They like that kind of view. They like quiet there, or internationally, they like certain places. We go to France for winter because right there it's nice and warm. But we don't like Europe. It's too hot. During that time, the Mediterranean, we prefer a certain area. Now, you find that their experiences, their quality of life is more important, and there's no real fear that the money is going to go away. Now, the more money you have, the more intimacy needs you have to meet. Why do we say so? Because when people are no longer concerned with survival, then they want other things. Quality of life things kick in. When people are no longer concerned with meeting the needs, then they want to be happy. They want to have a great life. They want to come home. And if you are unable to meet these intimacy needs, they can walk away because they say they don't feel fulfilled. You don't understand me anymore. The intellectual intimacy is not there. They walk away because they feel we don't want the same things. Hey, now you're in tricky situations. So people get, and at this point, when people who have money divorce for these reasons, for those who don't have that kind of money, you wonder, what a weak reason to divorce. But it's not. They're at that point where money is no longer an issue. So don't make it an issue, because it's not. We're not fighting about money. We're not fighting about expenses and bills and all of those things. We're fighting about other things. This is when people use phrases like, there's more to life than money. You're like, what do you mean there's more to life? Of course, you ask that question because for you, all your problems will be solved by money. But for them, they have it. Now they have other problems. They have life, they have relational problems. And at this point, if you don't have the relationship skills, you're going to be in trouble. So the more money you have, you actually need more relationship skills to keep the relationship going, because now more money generally means more time to do other things. And hey, then there's an issue of availability for the relationship. So this is usually the problem with the money as we pursue it. There's nothing wrong with pursuing. I'm not saying don't pursue it. I simply want you to be prepared of some of the challenges that will come with having the money, especially the new money that you're working on. Now, once you are having the money, you're making the money, you then are having the insider's view of money. What's the insider's view of money? The more money you make, the less time and energy you have for your relationships. That's the first thing that's a shock, because you've got 24 hours. And in the 24 hours, people who are making money, not just people who are surviving, living hand to mouth, people who are making money usually don't just work 8 hours, don't just work at 8 to 4, 4:30, 8 to 5. No, those people have to work beyond that. And you'll find that sometimes it's not that they are working after hours. They don't have after hours. Sometimes people have a job and then they've got another side hustle after hours that's going to make the money. And so that is taking away time. You can't stretch the day simply because you make more money. So the more money you make, the closer you get to affluence, the less time you have. Because by the time you're done making the money, what's happening? You don't have the energy. You don't. So you get to a situation where you can't have money and great sex, for example. You're going to have to choose one. You're not going to have the money that you want for the lifestyle that you want and still have the time and the energy for all these other things. And generally people will say, choose, you're going to get one. If you're going to get me, then forget the money. If you're going to get the money, then forget me. You're going to have to you'll have less of me and more of the money, or more of me, or you're going to have more of me and less of the money, or less of me and more of the money. That's it. And that's the insider's view, where you discover that people are able to grow apart because the process of making money takes away time and energy. There are professions that are labor intensive. If you talk to an attorney that's in private practice, I have a friend who's an advocate, and he says during the day we consult with clients, we do court work, and we usually do our reading at home. Imagine that. We usually do our reading at home. So when he finishes from his chambers, he finishes around 7, 8, he goes home and he's brought some reading material. Yes, they'll have dinner, watch TV, spend time with the family, but he's going to be up at about 3 or 4 doing his reading because he must be prepared during the day. The time is preserved for traveling, meeting with clients, going to court, and all of those things. So you get to drafting papers, but the reading is done at night. You meet with a medical doctor who's in private practice. They will tell you that it's a no work, no pay, unless they're in a practice and there's a group of them, but generally they work. Some I've seen have office hours, they close at a particular time, but I've seen doctors that are open right into 9 to 10 p.m. at night, and people are chewing outside and talking. I'm from Umtata, and I've seen that a lot with the medical doctors we have. So you'll find that there's a lot of time that is spent there. The IT people have all kinds of hours. So you find that the process of making money, talk to someone who's starting their own business, you will discover that they don't have office hours. The more money you make, the less time and energy you have for the relationships, not just for the spouse, but also for the children and other relationships. So that's the insider's view. So you get to realize that as much as this is a great blessing, but it comes as a cost, like all great things do. They come at a cost. Now, I've said this, the more money you make, the better you need to be at relationship skills. Why? Because if you're making money, and that means you're spending more time away from home. And it means that you when you come home, more often than not, you're tired. You have the desire and the will to be there and to be friendly and to listen. But sometimes you knock out and you fall asleep as the people are talking to you. The intentions are there, but there's so much that the body can take. This is why many people who are actually big and making money, they have to go to the gym because they need extra energy for the day. But beyond having the energy, you now have the relationship skills. You must now be able to invest in the emotional intimacy. You must be able to come home and share about your day. Let's share with your spouse what happened. Listen to your spouse. Now, if you don't have the time and the energy to listen to them, it's not going to happen. The emotional intimacy is not going to be there. You must have the presence of mind to talk about your dreams, talk about your fears, talk about all of those things. Now this, and you must have the time to have great experiences together. You must have the time to be able to share scripture together, pray together, sing together, go to church together, worship together. All of these things require time and your presence, and it requires that you have the skills to cultivate these things. When there's a problem, how do you deal with it? How do you fight? Do you fight like there's no tomorrow, or do you fight as someone who still needs this relationship with this person for tomorrow? So you need to be great in relationship skills. The downside is we don't always invest in relationship skills as much as we do invest in the skills we need to make our money. Now you get there and you'll find people talk about how my spouse is so arrogant. My spouse is all of this. My spouse doesn't care. My spouse doesn't listen. My spouse just does their own thing. They're always dictating. All of those things speak to lack of relationship skills, or relationship skills that have not been developed and cultivated. And now sometimes because there's the money, you feel that people should be appreciating of what you're doing. You're bringing so much money. You're working so hard for the family. The hard work you're putting into it for everybody, and the money that you're bringing benefits everybody. You are hoping people are going to be appreciative, and yet when you come, money becomes a smaller portion of their concern. Why? Because they've moved up. They're no longer aspirant. Probably they're adequate now, moving towards affluent. So money is no longer a big deal. So if we don't have a fear of losing the house and losing the car and not having something to eat and not having clothes, we don't have the fear of the kids being kicked out of school, the money you bring is no longer a big deal. It's no longer a big deal. It's just normal. And people are tired of being told that you're working hard for the family because it's normal. We're used to it. There are other things that are more important. That's it. At this point, you need more relationship skills. And this becomes taxing because this is when people feel unappreciated, because they feel after everything I've done, they still want more. People are always complaining. There's never enough. The only thing I hear is the things I do wrong. There's no appreciation for the things I do right. Well, we're used to the money. That's usually the problem. We're used to it now. We want other problems. Thirdly, that's usually the insider's view of money. Success is attractive. Success is attractive. Let me start with the ladies' side, and then I'll come to the men's side. Success is attractive. The more successful your wife is, the more affluent and great men she comes into contact with. That's it. That's just the nature of life. She moves into spaces where there are CEOs, COOs, people who own their own businesses, men who are way more accomplished than you, unless you're always so seriously accomplished. But she moves into space where people are way more accomplished than you. People are way more elegant than you. Their conversations connect because they're in the same spaces. And so she becomes attractive. There's something about money that allows you to buy things that make you look good. Even people who don't look that good, give them money, they tend to look okay-ish. Yes. Now, if your spouse is already good looking, imagine what money can do to your spouse. Imagine what a sensible weave does, or wig does, or clothes, outfits, heels, the car that she drives, nice handbag, matching outfits. Imagine what all of that. Good food does tend to affect your skin differently than the food that's not that great. So all of that, proper lipstick and proper makeup for those who are using makeup, all of those things can seriously prop you up. There are certain clothes that give you a shape you don't have naturally, but because you got these clothes, you get the shape. And so there's something about success, the confidence that she exudes, that makes her attractive. So success is attractive. Coming over to the men's side. When men become successful, they become more appealing to women of all ages, by the way, not just the women they are in the spaces with, because you'll find that he's up there, he's a successful, he moves into affluent circles, he's talking to powerful people, and they're powerful men in their spaces, but there are women who look up to him, who make themselves available to him, and they range from people who are in university all the way, whoever has possible access to him. So there's something attractive about money. Even the ugly ones, when they have money, they look okay. They generally look okay. And it's amazing how ugly people, not ugly people, how people who are not as attractive as they could have been, once they have money, they're able to snatch the most beautiful women around. Why? There's something attractive about money. And so the clothes add to it, and the style and the confidence and the car and the power and the introduction when you walk into the room, all of that makes you attractive. The downside of it is that in addition to the fact that it gives you more opportunities to explore with other people, because now your wife is exposed to men who are way more attractive than you, way more accomplished than you. Same applies if you have a successful husband. He's now exposed to women who are younger than than you, who are more beautiful than you, or more accomplished than you, who are able to carry on better conversations with you. That's the part of being successful, and it makes you attractive. One of the downsides of it is that it breeds entitlement. And then the more successful you are, the more you tend to feel that you're entitled to better. You deserve better. You deserve better. And you're able to come home and feel, I'm not getting the appreciation they get. And sometimes people walk away because they say there was no appreciation. I appreciation when I came home. They didn't see everything that I saw. And sometimes it's developed by the sense that you're successful. And because you're successful, you tend to be surrounded by people who are praise singers. People who see the good that you do, people who see the wow factor about you, people who see the great things about you, and they say them, they appreciate them, they tell you how great you are, how wonderful you are, how accomplished you are. And the compliments we get outside when we're successful, we don't always get them inside when we get home. And so that success that comes with it can sometimes be an entitlement to something better. Now, this is why successful people can sometimes feel they can have affairs and it's okay. They deserve a little bit of fun, considering of all the things they go through to make sure they provide for their families. That's part of the insider's view of money. The money that you have, whether you're pursuing the money, it's going to impact. I'm not talking about rands and cents. Just the process of pursuing money, trying to get money, is going to impact on your marriage, because it's going to eat on time, on energy, and it's going to require way more relationship skills than you probably have. So you must be very intentional about developing relationship skills, especially if you're trying to make more money than you have, especially if you're trying to buy a car that's more expensive than the car you have, if you're trying to buy a house that's bigger and better than the one you have, if you're trying to eventually move into a different tax bracket than the one you're in. The process of making the money is going to be taxing on the relationship. And you're going to need to have more relationship skills. You're going to have to be very intentional in developing and cultivating the intimacies in your marriage, because the process of getting the money is going to be expensive. Once you have the money, you're going to have new challenges as well, because trying to keep the money and keep the people you're connected to, move in the spaces you need to move in to keep the money, and also have a healthy relationship, is going to require a lot of you. So money can be a problem when you don't have it. Sometimes when people say money is one of the reasons that people get divorced, they're thinking that it's the absence of money that causes problems. No, sometimes it's the absence of money. Sometimes it's the pursuit of money. Sometimes it's the presence of money. Why? It's not the money that's the problem. The problem is the inability to deal with the other relational things when there's money, because this one is here and it's demanding time and energy and focus, and we are able to pay more attention to getting it, keeping it, and the relationship suffer. So when you think about finding somebody to marry, as you talk about your future with the person, it's very important that you talk about, yes, I want to be this, I want to be a CEO, I want to be that, I want to eventually be a university vice chancellor, I want to be a researcher, I want to be president of a conference if you're a minister and that you're so inclined. I want to be a chief engineer, I want to run my own business. As you talk about those things, talk about them in the context of the relationship, in the context of the marriage that you're going to have, and in the context of the relationship the two of you are going to have, the relationship you're going to have with the children. And talk about the reality of time, the reality of energy, the reality that it may not be the best thing for you to be a CEO at 30 or 35. A lot of other things are going to suffer when you become a CEO at 30 or 35. It's usually better when you get to those seriously demanding jobs, when you've cultivated a great relationship with a wife. Preferably the kids are out of school or probably in university, and they don't need as much of your attention as they could have demanded earlier on. This idea that you pursue your success and get it while you're young sometimes means that other very vital relationships, including marriage, can suffer. And sometimes we wonder, why is it that this person worked so hard to be successful, and the moment they got successful, they divorce? It's because the marriage suffered in the process of pursuing success. So money is something that's going to be vital. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. It doesn't say money is the root of all evil. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. Money can do a lot of good. The gospel goes around the world, largely it's financed by money. So there's a lot of good that money does. So the issue here is that you shouldn't have money. It's that the pursuit of money Not having money can be a problem, but the pursuit of money and success. Because you may be thinking, I don't want to be rich. If you want more, if you want better things than the things you have now, you're pursuing money, and trying to keep the money that you have. Those will have its own challenges. Please don't have your discussions and your dreams outside of this context. Otherwise, what the blessing that money should have been can become a curse. Not because money itself is bad, but because when it came in the context of a relationship where money was not thought about broadly, it became a problem. So I'm hoping that everybody who's listening here is going to say, yes, I want better, I want more. But when you do so in the context of your relationship, of your marriage and of your children. There's a concept of making excellence a lifestyle. The concept of making excellence a lifestyle simply says you must be intentional about excelling at work, at home, because it doesn't happen automatically. At work, at home, with your relationship with your wife, with your kids, with your spirituality. There are many successful people who say you can't be excel at everything. Pick one thing and run with it. I say find a level at which you're going to pitch your success. It may not be up there, but you want it to be here and across the board, instead of being lopsided where you are celebrated in the world and you don't even talk to the people you live with. So that's what you want to do. You want to move. You want to make sure that all aspects of your life are catered for so that you can experience your success across the board. Money has the capacity to be a great blessing in a marriage. It can also be a tremendous curse if you don't think about it and manage it in the context of the relationship. How are you going to do that? James 1:5 says, if you lack wisdom, ask God and he will give it to you. Here you're going to need wisdom. More than your certificates, more than your qualifications, your skills, your connections, here you're going to need God. You're going to need wisdom from God to see how can you manage your pursuit of money, your retention of money, your pursuit of a better lifestyle, better life. How do you manage that pursuit? How do you manage that retention and still be spiritual and still be intimate with your wife and still have a great relationship with your children? That's going to require wisdom. And part of that wisdom will be the courage to go and learn, attend workshops and seminars that teach relationship skills, that teach about parenting, attending workshops and seminars that talk about spirituality, that focus on prayer, that focus on Bible reading. Invest time and money and energy into different aspects of your life so that your life can be a success. If the spouse you're talking about is talking about success and money and a better life, and they don't want to factor in these other aspects of life, you're going to have a very difficult marriage if you proceed with it, because you're going to end up with things and still be miserable because you don't have the thing you came into this marriage for. That's if you came for the relationship. If you came for the things, then you'll probably be happy. And I pray that the Lord will bless you as you think about money, as you talk about money with the person you're going to marry, and may be a blessing in your marriage. Amen.
Thank you very much, Pastor. Money is such a sensitive issue in relationships.
It is.
Because very often money equals power.
It does. And the people who have the power sometimes feel that they're just being reasonable. It comes with the territory. And you don't understand what they're going through. Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's important for I don't know, I must say this carefully. It's important not to go into a relationship and be dependent financially on someone. It puts you on the back foot. If you go in and you don't have education, you don't have a job, whichever partner that happens to is, I think, you're not on an equal footing, if I can put it that way, if you're not careful. Because with money comes power.
True. I think it takes a great person to be the one who has the money in a relationship where one is a stay-at-home spouse and not flex the muscle, the power that comes with the money. I mean, you must be a great person to do that. because naturally, when you have the money, you're more inclined to want to make decisions. You're more inclined to expect that your suggestions should flow because you have the money. So, yeah, if you're choosing to be a housewife, at the very least, have the capacity to earn money. If you're not going to be earning the money, have the capacity. So an education would help. The capacity to have a business, the know-how and the context to be able to start a business, very, very helpful. That's if you choose to be a housewife. Now, if you and your wife choose that she is going to be the housewife, you have to be intentional about your language, that the money is your money, the two of you. It's not my money, it's our money. Very intentional with the language, very intentional about the budgeting process, that you sit down, plan them together. Very intentional about discretionary spending. It can't be one-sided because the other person cannot feel like a minor in the relationship because you guys agreed that you are going to be a housewife and I'm going to work.
And Pastor, someone also asks, should we have one bank account?
You can, but you shouldn't. Should is like it's required. But I would say you can if you want to. But this is what I usually advise couples when we are doing premarital counseling, that you may have one account where that's going to pay for your things. But I always advise them to have discretionary money or pocket money, so to speak, money that you can each spend without counting what happened to it. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, depending on what your finances are. But it's good. Adults want to have the freedom to buy nonsense and spend it and blow it. And
Pastor,
not
I'm going to say amen. I'm going to say amen. No.
Adults want that. It's part of working and being an adult. So I would say if you want to have one bank account for the whole household good, it's okay. But have the capacity to have people spend money without having to account for it. The problem with having to withdraw the money from the joint bank account to spend it on nonsense is that you may need to explain. I saw you withdrew 500 Rand. What was it for? But if you've agreed that you each have 500 Rand to do whatever, and you put it in separate bank accounts, you have your 500, I have my 500, then I can blow it on anything I want. I can give it to a friend, I can give it to an uncle who I know won't pay back, and it's not going to be a fight because it's my money to do whatever I want. So as if you want to have a bank account, you can have a joint account, but I'm not saying people cannot have individual accounts. You can have a joint account where your finances come together. With some people, it's not a joint account; it's a joint budget. We know that you're bringing 80 Rand, I'm bringing 100 Rand. Our budget is 180, and we sit and we budget on 180 Rand. And it says that when things have to be paid for, this 60 Rand will come from that account. That 90 Rand is going to come from that account. And that's it. But the budget is joint. This is what we are doing with our money. So that's how other people do it. And there's no prescribed way. Both of them can work. But in any way you choose, please allow the adults in the relationship to retain the freedom to just spend some money on some nonsense without having to report and ask for permission.
It's so important for people who are planning to get married, because money causes a lot of problems in relationships, and people just aren't prepared for that. And it's only when the bills come in and they realize, oh my, what's happening now? Who's going to pay this?
I have a direct message here. How do we contribute to the family expenses, considering that one party and partner earns more or less? It helps the joint budget, but it's going to require transparency. When we do premarital counseling, we have a chapter in my workbook of premarital disclosures, where I say you now have to share payslips and bank accounts. I don't want estimates; it must be actual figures. Someone must know exactly how much you earn. So it's good that you're going to be able to know exactly how much your spouse earns. And so, as I said before, if one earns 80, one earns 100, that's what you both know, and you come up with a budget, a household budget, based on those two amounts. That's how you can do it.
Okay, thanks, Pastor. Someone here wants to know, how do you manage the scenario when the man doesn't bring in as much money as man or as the man, and can't cope that his wife earns more?
I think he needs to talk to somebody, because there's a problem of the concept of manhood. We grow up being told that we are providers. I want you to understand, so that you don't think that there's something, the man is crazy. From when we're children, boys, we are told that we are providers. You're a provider. And there's a text that is abused, used out of context. It's not even what it means. 1 Timothy 5:8. If anyone does not provide for his own, especially those of his own household, he is worse than an unbeliever. He has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. That text is used to tell us that if we don't provide for our families, we have denied the faith, we are worse than unbelievers. And that's it. And providing is generally defined as being the breadwinner, the one who brings more money at home. And that's it. They'll go to Genesis chapter 3. They talk about how a man is supposed to eat of the sweat of his face until he goes back to the dust, because he was formed from the dust. And all of these are being told that this is part of our job. Adam was placed in the garden and told to work it. And we get told that it's our job. We're supposed to be breadwinners. Imagine you've been told that your entire childhood. You become a man, and that's what the men around you tell you. And you then get to realize that to be a man, to be a husband, is to be a breadwinner. What do you think happens to that man's mind when he earns less than his wife? He already in his mind thinks he's failed as a man, he's failed as a husband, he's not a breadwinner, he has failed God, he has disappointed God, he has denied the faith, he's worse than an unbeliever. All of that is going through him. And so there he is feeling like he's nothing. And you're telling him, no, you're something. The conversation he needs to have is with someone who's going to help him work on his concept of manhood and deal with the different things we were taught as children, so that he can embrace the fact that he can still be a man, still be a husband, still be a father, and not be a breadwinner. Now, that's a journey that you're not going to be able to take him through in the fight in the bedroom, fighting over money, fighting over bills. He's going to need to sit down with someone who's going to take him through that. But if he's going to sit down with somebody who thinks that men should be providers and breadwinners, and that's what defines men, it's going to be worse of a problem. So that's how you deal with it. You don't deal with it by telling him to get over it. He's not going to get over it. It's deeper than that. It's a bigger problem. It connects with culture, sense of self, religion. All of these are put together. How other people see him, how he responds to the fact that he earns less than his wife. The language begins to change. He starts referring to this as your mother's car, as this. His voice is muted a little bit. Why? Because everything he knows about life and about being a man and a husband and a father is tied to him being a breadwinner. So it's going to be that long of a process. Just get someone who's going to help him with that kind of thinking, who will work with him through the things he's been told, the cultural expectations, the spiritual stuff that he's been told, so that the mind is going to change. And it's going to take a while for that to happen. If you are the spouse of such a man, be patient and help him find someone.
Thank you, Pastor. Before we get to the Borgos question, someone says it's important to have a conversation before marriage about how to support parents later in marriage.
True, not just parents, but the responsibilities that you have. Talk about the responsibilities that you have. Now, for example, you may be at home. When I got married to my wife, I told her I'm the eldest at home. I'm the eldest son at home. So I have a responsibility to help my mother with my younger brothers. They were still at university at the time when we met. And I said, that's part of my responsibilities. When my mother grows old, she'll probably be my financial responsibility. So declare your responsibilities. What are your responsibilities? Do you have cousins that you're taking care of? Do you have relatives you're taking care of? Do you have other bills you have to pay for? Are the people who supported you when you were growing up and went to school who now expect you to support their kids? Do you have a situation like that? Declare all of those things ahead of time. What happens if one of your siblings, things go terribly wrong in life and they're old now, they're adults with children, families? Will you be expected to do something? Will you be expected to contribute? Will you be expected to accommodate them? Discuss those things, because when they come up, you must have a principled decision on how you're going to handle that. And that will include parents when they grow old, or parents when they fall ill, parents when they lose their jobs and they lose their income. you discuss those things and come to an understanding of what are expectations in your home. And you may be with someone whose family does not expect them to finance them, but you are expected at home to finance. So agree, if this expectation kicks in from my side of the family, how are we going to handle it? And yeah, because we don't come from the same backgrounds.
Thank you, Pastor. Yeah, I guess these are conversations that must be had. Someone wants to know, Teboho, what are practical things one can do to rebuild the intimacy in a relationship?
I think the first step is to realize, both of you, that intimacy is more than sex, which is very, very important. And I would say read up on it. First thing, read up on it so that you can know the different things, that the aspects of it. Today we just covered part of it. And you're going to need time. You can't force intimacy. You can't force intimacy. It's something that is going to have to come from the other person. Now, you may say, but my spouse doesn't feel like being intimate. He doesn't want to talk, or she doesn't want to talk. They don't want to do things together. Then you suggest it's time, and you start with things that are easy and fun. For example, you may say, usually it's the wives who feel my husband doesn't want to be intimate in other ways other than sex. And then my advice would, but what does he like? Well, all he does is like football. Well, my suggestion would be, find out which team he supports and let him teach you some of the rules of the game. And as you start to watch football together, it's part of your experiential intimacy together. Are you big on football? No, you're not. Well, football is a means to an end. There are all kinds of things that we watch. For example, my wife is big on sci-fi. I'm not into sci-fi, but she likes sci-fi. So I've watched a lot of sci-fi over the years. Why? Because she likes it, not because I'm necessarily into it. And that's what happens when you're married to somebody. There are things you end up doing together because the other one likes it, and you end up doing it with them. It's not going to kill you. You don't hate it, but you would not have been your first choice. So I'd say that's what you start. Start with what that person enjoys, and start with that experiential intimacy. Because as you have those things together, it's easy to have conversations about football, and conversations about football are able to create an atmosphere that allows you to talk about other things. And then it builds. You may end up buying shirts of Kaizer Chiefs together. I'm a Kaizer Chiefs fan, yes. I do not expect you to be an Orlando Pirates fan here and be married and have a successful marriage. Successful marriage is for Kaizer Chiefs. But you can end up wearing the gear together. I have a friend, Pastor Bomela, who, when he married his wife, she was not into football. And so he says how he got her into football. He took her to a stadium to watch live games. She loved the live games. She was not really keen on the games on television, but she loved the live games. And then after a few live games, she followed the game. She knew the players. They were now able to follow it and enjoy it together on television. Today, they sit and shout together, and you hear him shout at the referee and the player watching football. They got there. So you start by what the person likes, and it grows and it develops into other things, and you'll find that the person may be more open to trying the things that you like, and then the conversations improves, the jokes improve, the time you do things, you take walks together, you go to the shop together. Don't always go for the big things. The small things can also help you. So know that, and you're looking, this is long term. You're not looking for a change that's going to happen next week. Change is going to happen in 2-3 years, but you start investing now.
Thanks, Pastor. And it's something that one has to be intentional about. Shan loves cricket, so he taught me lots about cricket. I didn't know anything about cricket because it doesn't matter to me. Oh, it didn't. Now True. I can also watch.
My wife got me into cricket. She's from the West Indies, and so they've got, and me. So I got it. Now I've gotten to a point now where I enjoy 5-day cricket. But yeah, that's a different ball game altogether.
So yeah, one has to do stuff together if you're dating, and then also when you're married, because sometimes these things slip up when you sort of get married and you get used to each other. Now suddenly you're not interested in the hobbies anymore. I've got you now, so yeah. I'm pursuing whatever it is that I wanted, and you pursue what you want to, but it doesn't help the relationship much. I see there are no more comments. Tatum is just thanking for for such an insightful few days. Remember, the last day is tomorrow, guys. Please invite your friends. Well.
Yes, I have a DM here of someone who wants marriage counseling. I think Connie, is it your office number? I'm trying to find out, because in my office there's Mandisa. I'm trying to find now the office number, because I want to give out her cell number here. Then they can call Mandisa. Mandisa is very efficient at handling my 051-447-8271. I'm going to ask Denise to put it there, or maybe I can see if I can put it for everyone. 051-447-8271, and then ask for Mandisa. Arrange it with her. Otherwise, and of course, there's an issue of time. There it is. There's an issue of time. You may not always be able to do it immediately, because I do a lot of that and everything else. So for that person who asked, I won't mention your name because you sent a private. Okay, fine. So that we can keep it private like that. So we can arrange something like that. So yeah, that was the message there. Other than that, thank you very much. I think we've had a great time. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Pastor. Terry's even saying, please add more days.
It's the same thing that happened the first time we did it, remember?
Yes. But then we must have a next time, okay? Next time we're going to have the blended families. So then
yes, we still have that one that's outstanding.
Yes.
We still have that one that's outstanding. But that next time is not tomorrow. That next time is not tomorrow.
But tomorrow is our last session. So
yes, it is.
Join us tomorrow evening, and please invite your friends. There was a friend of mine that was on here from even Immaculate yesterday. I see she's not on. I must remind her again. So I sent to all my friends, and it's a nice way of reaching out to people.
Can I just, there's a DM that came here that's asking about being married in community and out of community of property. Are they both acceptable to the church? Yes. Marriage regimes, they're basically about how you manage money. That's what you're deciding. You're deciding to be married in community of property. In other words, what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. That's what it is. Or you decide to get married out of community of property. There, you need some form of contract, an antenuptial contract. If you watch a lot of TV, they call them prenup. This is when you say, there are certain things we're getting into the marriage with. I'd like this one to stay out of the marriage and that one to stay out of the marriage. There's something that, talk to a lawyer about it, because they'll be able to tell you, because I was of the view that there was a migration away from out of community of property without accrual. Accrual is whatever it is we get together after we're married. What happens to that? And some regimes will say, well, whatever after we get married, even the things we get after we get married, yours will be yours and mine will be mine. And then in other instances, they'll say, whatever happens after we get married, that we split, because it's not just assets, it's also debt. So whatever happens after marriage, that we split. And in some contracts will be so detailed that this is how we are going to split it. Of course, courts have intervened and done all kinds of things with those agreements, but essentially it's how you manage money. Now, you don't have a marriage regime that's holier than the other. If you decide to marry in community of property, what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. That's fine. It's not holier than what the things I have before I get married are mine, and the things you have before you get married are yours. That's not less holy. I'll give an instance where I've recommended that people marry out of community of property. Two people get married and they are in their 50s, late 50s, 60s, sometimes or late even 40s. They have children. Their children are growing up. They probably were married before. And part of what they have, the home, the cars, the investments, came from the policies and whatever they built with the first spouse. Now you're going to get married. If you get married in community of property, the children from both homes lose homes, because this new setup is not really their home. Nina, you are married, but that doesn't mean that they are married. You're bringing the things you have from both relationships here. And when one of you dies here, It's a headache for the children
Mm-hmm.
of the person who's just died. And if you divorce here, it's going to create havoc. And so it's always wise when you're very later on in life and you have children, you've got assets, both of you, so that you don't have more friction. It's better to sit with an attorney and say, the things we have, this is how our kids we have from these previous relationships. This is they're going to be their home. This will be part of their inheritance from their father, from their mother who died, or whatever the case may be. We are building our own. This is what we're going to use to build our own life. And here you can have your own wills and whatever, or even the contract can regulate how you handle what you're going to build together. So it's not always wise to marry in community of property. So they have to do with life circumstances. It's not that one is holier than the other. It depends on what your circumstances are. So if you're contemplating getting married, sit down with an attorney just to check what the options are. And if you feel with all the information you will get that you still want to go ahead and get married in community of property, fine. If you want to get out of community of property, their attorney will assist you to drop a contract that you're going to need when you guys get married.
Now, that's so important, Pastor, for people to know what they're getting themselves into, what the arrangements are. But a lot of ladies will tell you when they ask, if the husband wants to do stuff or lay claim to stuff, then they say, what's mine is mine and what's yours is also mine. That's how it works in most of the relationships.
Yeah, that's how the wise prefer it. Now, there's a question here. There's a DM. Is it wrong for a woman to ask a man that she's dating how his financial status is? It's not wrong. Depending on how it's asked, it can come across as fishing for my money. If you're going to ask me, so how much money you have? So how are you doing financially? It can come across as though you're a gold digger trying to find out how much money you can cash in on the guy. But if you are in the process of disclosing mutually your interests, your interest, and I would say at a stage when you feel that the other things seem to be in place, and then you can talk about money, and let the person disclose what their financial situation is. And remember, when people are still young, they may not always have their ducks in a row when it comes to finances. But I always say, at the very least, the person must be able to finance their own life. And I'm not just talking about men and women. At the very least, the person must be able to finance their own life. They must be able to finance their own tastes. There are people who have tastes that far exceed their income. So have that conversation, but let it be a mutual conversation, not a one-sided thing of, so how are you doing financially? Because it can come across as though you're a gold digger trying to sort out what their money is. If it is very clear that you make way more money than he does, it can also come across as though you're flexing the muscle. So you need to be very careful in talking about money so that it comes across as just an information session, so that you are able to make proper informed decisions and plans for the future.
Should young married couple have an older marriage mentor couple in church?
I would rather go for can a young married couple have an older marriage mentor couple in church? Yes, it is. Should, I would not compel it because sometimes you may not be on the same page. But older couples help, especially if the kind of marriage that you from a distance you respect, because you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. It helps because they are able to give you guidance on, at the very least, things you should consider. At the very least, they'll be able to give you, when you're angry about something, they can give you a different perspective to say, maybe that's not what the other person intended. Maybe this is what happened. And because they've gone through a lot of the things you are going to go through, they're able to give you hope to say, well, we went through this, we navigated it like this, we got to the other side. So one of the things that I learned over time, and it was from older couples, it was that not all differences are going to be resolved, and you must be at peace with that. Some of them are gonna remain resolved, for ages. But it's fine. You just find ways to live with it. So it would be a very good idea that you find a couple in church, not necessarily your local church. That find an older couple that can be a mentor couple for you. It would be helpful, but I wouldn't compel you to, but I would advise you strongly to do it.
Okay, this is going to be the absolute last question. How do you handle tithe in one household, especially if the other spouse does not go to church?
Tithe is a personal act of worship to God. It's not a household expense.
Mm.
The individual is returning to God what belongs to God. You are responding to God's authority over your life, the creatorship of God. You are acknowledging that as creator, he owns everything, and he has given you, the believer, the directive to return the tithe to him as God. It's part of acknowledging him as God, as creator and owner of everything. It's not a household expense. In other words, it's not something that you do because your household needs to return tithe. No, believers return tithe. If your husband or your wife is not there, not believing in it, not interested in it, you don't compel them, because now you're compelling worship.
Mm-hmm.
So you do it as the person who's the believer, as the one who's responding to God. That's how I would say that. So don't force someone who does not go to church. Don't force someone who does not believe in the value of the tithe, or someone who does not want to do it right now. Because some people know it's true. Some people are going through a phase of questioning it. Some people feel I'd rather do other things God should understand, or whatever issue they may have with the church. But you can't compel someone to return tithe, because it's an act of worship, and worship must always be voluntary. Voluntary. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Pastor. That makes a lot of sense. So we are done for the evening. Please join us again tomorrow evening. Thank you once again, Pastor, for a very informative session. This is just so helpful. And you can see from the comments and stuff that people are really, really benefiting from this. And people, everyone so looks forward to these presentations. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Pastor. Pastor,
we have the Browns there. Can we ask Craig or Edre to close for us in prayer?
Okay.
One of them is there. They can't both be absent.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it seems that they are both absent. All right.
Is there sound?
There's sound now, yes.
Yes.
All right, let us pray. Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for the session we had tonight, Lord. We ask and pray that you'll bless us with much wisdom. Dear Father, help us where we are lacking. Lord, we want to bring all the relationships before you in a very special way, dear Father, the marriages. Asking, Lord, that you will intercede, you will undertake, that your name will be glorified by these many unions. Bless those who are looking forward to this endeavor, dear Father. May they realize that it is what you have desired for human life, dear Master. We thank you for Pastor Mandla. Bless him and his family. Bless each head bowed, each family represented tonight. We ask in your sweet name, Lord. Amen.